Our devices are burning ads into our retinas, cramming them into every square inch of screen space. TVs, smart home hubs, and other products from popular manufacturers have revealed themselves as Trojan horses that first delivered convenience and entertainment, but soon became billboards featuring ads you can't remove on screens you can't turn off. This not-so-secret plan to increase profits was common knowledge to shareholders for years, but it has only recently crept up on consumers who are starting to go crazy from the sheer amount of ads they're exposed to. Look, I'm sure you've heard some variation of this rant before. Many have complained about influencers doing too many brand deals and other practices that cause what social media users refer to as ad fatigue. I will not be throwing stones from that glass house, as I do plenty of brand deals and have nothing against individuals getting paid for their disclosed endorsements. Rather, I want to focus on the legislation that allows your TV to become a billboard for Home Depot unless you unplug it. This is not ad fatigue. In fact, that term is unrelated to the situation at hand. It comes from marketing, but has transformed into the TikTok buzzword of the week. We're experiencing an ad invasion, and it's only one of the deleterious effects of a business model by which companies sell physical devices at discounted prices and make back the lost profits through sleazy schemes. Firstly, I want to introduce you to my very expensive brand new TV. It's the cat's meow in terms of its specs, being able to display blindingly bright high dynamic range content while retaining detail in the dark parts of the image. Unfortunately, it comes with some problems, albeit first world problems that privileged influencers can totally live with. Setting it up was a nightmare, where I was immediately asked to connect to the World Wide Web before being inundated with terms and conditions checkboxes. I was encouraged to check them all off and sign away my soul without reading them, but I was careful not to because some of those terms and conditions looked outrageous. Interest-based and cross-device advertising agreement. It allows you to receive interest-based and cross-device advertisements and describes your choices with respect to such advertisements. The on-screen interface instructed me to download an app to enable core functionality. Even though I didn't want to download the app, it was the right move because the AI remote, which should have been sentient according to its name, was frustratingly terrible to use. Even being somewhat tech-savvy, it was a very annoying experience. Certainly not one you'd expect from a rather premium product. Part of me assumes this is by design. The terms and conditions checkboxes function somewhat like landmines. You have to carefully step over them, lest you trigger one and cause an explosion of advertisements. Somehow I stepped on one of those landmines because the first thing I saw when the TV booted up was an ad for Home Depot FIFA. Would that be Ho FIFA or Fif Depot? I'm not sure. I wasn't surprised then, but I was shocked by what happened next. I didn't catch this on camera, but when I went to turn off my newly purchased Times Square in my living room, it gave me a seemingly bogus warning that the remote would be unresponsive or something if I turned the TV off. It appears that the warning meant almost nothing because I shut it off immediately and nothing happened. It works just fine. Maybe I read the warning wrong. You may call me conspiratorial or a spoiled brat, but it's hard not to see what their plan might be here. It seems they want you to live with a 55-inch always-on billboard in a prominent position in your home. This is not a wild prediction of the future. This is how some manufacturers are trying to turn a profit on their TVs right now. Say hello to Telly, another 55-inch 4K HDR TV that does not cost nearly $1,000. In fact, it's free, but with a catch. Affixed to the bottom of the main screen is a second display that is always on unless you physically unplug the device. The corner of the lower display serves as a permanent space for ads. You can yank the power cord, but from what I've heard, that may be against Telly's terms and conditions. In my understanding, if a consumer doesn't use a TV as expected, they threaten to charge them $1,000 and demand that they return the TV. So the TV is free, except they basically own it along with the consumer's data. The consumers become the product, with their viewing habits shared with companies so they can run targeted ads. Telly maintains that the data they collect is anonymized and that they take privacy seriously, but you know the song and dance here. If this sounds familiar to you, this is how big tech monetizes their digital products. Telly is a tech company, after all, and the decreased cost of manufacturing electronic devices has made their proposed business model hypothetically profitable. We'll see what happens with Telly, as the company is still in its early stages. But other manufacturers have proven that some variation of this business model can be very effective. While giving out free hardware is a gamble, Telly's strategy is not entirely novel. Tech companies have been selling electronics at cost or for heavily subsidized prices in hopes of collecting more data and selling screen space to advertisers for years now. While I was looking to buy my first TV ever, I did check out Amazon's prices on Cyber Monday, only to be underwhelmed by the lack of good deals on name brand TVs. The TVs that Amazon offered for pennies on the dollar were the Amazon Fire TVs, and I found the prices very suspect because these devices aren't cheap to produce. Though the cost of manufacturing high-quality TVs has plummeted in recent years, Amazon still had to pay rather expensive technology licensing fees to support Dolby Vision content on their displays. Few of these expenses are reflected in the price of these TVs, some of which you can still get for under $400. I'm not an expert, and I assume they're still turning a profit, but it's not likely these TVs are a high-margin product unless there's a catch. Users of the Fire TV have made the catch obvious to anyone who will listen. If you look at the Fire TV subreddit, there are many complaints about incessant ads. I've heard about some of these complaints with the Amazon Fire Stick before, which is a small device that you plug into your TV's HDMI port. Of course, if a Fire Stick runs too many ads, it's easy to unplug it and use an inexpensive competing product. But with the Fire TV, Amazon controls the TV display itself. This results in a poor user experience and angry reviews on Amazon despite having otherwise decent specs. According to this reviewer, the #1 reason why you shouldn't buy this TV is that there are inescapable ads that you must click through to access content. Also, there are very complicated menus you have to click through to access basic features. Wait a second. That's exactly like my expensive TV. Surely these problems that I tried to avoid won't affect me, will they? For middle and upper income consumers who have some wealth and general financial stability, the adpocalypse hasn't fully arrived yet. It may be right around the corner though. Unless you are unimaginably wealthy, your life may soon be inundated with ads. For now, the somewhat wealthy, including content creators in denial about their lifestyle creep, simply pay more to avoid the incessant ads now running on more affordable electronic devices. This strategy might not work for long, as companies selling premium but not luxury devices have begun to test the waters, running ads you can technically disable for now to see how consumers will react. Remember those terms of service agreements that I agreed to when setting up my TV? Agreeing to terms of service agreements written in dense legalese can sign you up for things you most certainly wouldn't agree to if they were spelled out in plain English. I don't know my TV manufacturer's plans specifically, but other companies have patented ways of placing banner ads directly on top of or interrupting the HDMI feed coming out of your Apple TV or Blu-ray player. I don't want to give greedy companies any ideas, but TV manufacturers could feasibly charge a subscription to remove ads that were never there before. These subscriptions could even have tiered pricing, where there's a free plan loaded with ads, a low-cost plan with some ads, or a very expensive plan with no ads. That way, they can extract every dollar they can out of each class of consumer, assuming companies will give them the option to buy their way out. Some companies may choose not to have an ad-free option, and in the future, it could be that the only people who have an ad-free viewing experience are those who can afford to install a home theater setup in their McMansion. The screen space of the upper middle class may be far too valuable to sell back to consumers for only a few dollars a month. One misconception is that this advertising strategy can't work because people will get tired of ads, but people are already tired of ads and they continue to pop up everywhere. The fact is they work, which is why companies pay top dollar to run them. Of course, if this absolute worst case scenario happens, people will be furious. But with antiquated laws and weak consumer protections, this is perfectly legal for companies to do. In the US, at least. Most of our troubles as Americans are because of a law passed in 1998, known as the Digital Millennium Copyright Act. The DMCA gets a lot of hate today, but it was a landmark piece of legislation at the time that paved the way for a free and open internet. It's also nearly 3 decades old, written long before a toaster had a touchscreen, a Wi-Fi connection, and a monthly subscription. Lawmakers could not have envisioned a world where most household appliances are full-on computers, complete with an internet connection. According to the DMCA, consumers own their physical devices, but the software that makes them function is the copyrighted property of its manufacturer. Someone may own their toaster, but Big Toaster Incorporated has the legal right to force them to use a terrible app to turn it on and charge $14.99 a month to remove the Home Depot FIFA ad plastered on the side of it. What's frustrating is even with the current laws on the books, this doesn't have to be this way. The Copyright Office has the power to carve out exemptions to this law in some instances, where a consumer can modify their device by loading third-party software onto it. This can allow for use of core functionality of a device while bypassing any junk the manufacturer loaded onto it. This is a practice commonly referred to as jailbreaking, which sounds illegal because it pretty much was, in my understanding, until a small handful of exemptions were carved out by the Copyright Office. Smartphones, TVs, and smart home hubs are now somewhat legal to jailbreak, but that doesn't mean it's easy. In fact, it can require a lot of technical knowledge that most people do not have. Besides, jailbreaking a device can void your warranty or break the device entirely. Even if people could do it easily, many would choose not to because it can break critical features. Currently, it's not easy to load third-party software on pretty much any home appliance, and that's by design. Manufacturers hate jailbreaking for obvious reasons, and they make it almost impossible through clever design of the components in their devices. It's clear we need comprehensive legislation to protect consumers from anti-competitive practices. Copyright law must be reformed, and new laws giving us the right to modify and repair our devices without being punished must be passed. It's abundantly clear that if corporations can do something that will make them a lot of money, they will do it. I don't know much about drafting good laws, as I am not a lawyer, but the people at the Electronic Frontier Foundation are lawyers. I'm not affiliated with them, but they're a nonprofit whose mission includes reforming copyright laws and giving us the right to actually own our devices in both the US and abroad. Donate to the Electronic Frontier Foundation if you can. I attach some mechanism to donate to them under this video, whether it's a button or link in the description. Please share this video and comment if I forgot to add a link and/or fundraiser to it. Regulations take time, but there are also things you can do to avoid nightmare scenarios in your life. When you're shopping for anything, buy the dumbest stuff you can get your hands on if you can afford it. We're talking bare bones, no frills or niceties. Smart devices' convenient features can become traps to feed you ads or lock you into subscriptions. It can be really hard to figure out which products may become a hassle in the future, but here are some red flags to look out for. A device is Wi-Fi or Bluetooth enabled when it doesn't have to be. It has an unnecessary app or cloud service that unlocks core functionality. It has a screen instead of physical buttons. It is suspiciously cheap compared to competing products. If you're looking at a device that has some or all of these red flags, do not buy it and thank me later. People are tired and angry at the nonsense their devices are putting them through, and for good reason. Being inundated with ads makes people sad, and I've heard there are studies to back that claim up. What we shouldn't do is accept that this is just how things are. Things weren't this way in the past, and they don't have to get worse in the future. If we are very vocal and make some tough decisions now, we can avoid the dystopian nightmare everyone falsely claims is inevitable. Anyways, I'm Robert Tolpe, and if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe, and I hope you have a great week. Bye-bye.